All right, this is me just talking about the Doodle revolution. I saw this on Nick's desk um, a little while ago, and I bought it digitally, and then I realized that I'd like to doodle myself, and I'm having a conversation with many of the people who write books. So I decided to get the hard copy. Anyway, hard copy. They start off trying to get the old any prejudices about can drawing, and starts focusing on the idea of visual literacy and then using it to interpret. The 10-second wombat. There's a few activities in the book which I haven't completely finished, but give you a rationale of why and how the types of noodling. So let me just address that first. Types of sketching or noodling. You'd have the just sketching kinesthetic, going for runs, walks, etc. Musical, I checked with my kids, and many of them do musical noodling like I do when you're just using an instrument to let things clear your head, and mental, just visualization, daydreaming. Why? For merging data, I've been doing that a lot lately. Reflection, and I'll talk more about that later, or just strictly information. The other aspect, if I was going to highlight, would be performance aspect. The idea of using it for review, strategic, critical thinking, relaxation, focus. It's a great one for metacognition with the kids. I know that I've been using it to start each day, and I'll get more into that in a second. And so the idea of making them aware of how they think and what works for them. That's why I just don't like doodling, but I like the whole idea of noodling with respect to different physical, musical, etc., which I just touched on. So in it, they talk about the idea of fonts. And let me just get in here. So fonts, the types: abstract, nature, picture type, faces, analogies, metaphors, which is probably the strongest aspect of visual note-taking. This thing could be easily one of leadership or subservience. A number of kids could interpret it different ways. So major concepts, highly abstract concepts, with essentially a couple of dozen lines. It reminds me of the old eyewitness books too. Something to think about, because I've always liked those. All right. So what am I doing? Let me just focus on that. So far, what am I doing with it is I just grabbed some scrap paper from Nancy, and we've been using it for note-taking, which our note-taking hasn't been great of late, but great in terms of expressing large ideas. And they can't copy. It's not like they can copy when they're collecting notes this way. Merging data, mixing it with stuff they already know to make sense of it. And visualization, I haven't tried this so much yet, but the idea of using it for see what you want to look like. Either you're planning a poster, if you're doing a movement, what does it look like? Or visualization of success, as long as we don't get too close to the secret and get to that visualization, you loving money, or whatever the hell I talk about. Daily doodler, that's something I've been doing. Just giving a kid who's the doodler for the day, and then I just use Scannable. It's an Evernote app that transfers. It just goes from analog to digital, so you can upload to the blog. And I can start the day or review the day with the picture. I can merge data. They can process the information. That would be an example, and that could be anything from support the Earth to the fact that we're doing geology right now. She looks at the visual alphabet and gives them points and lines and arches and angles, spiral and loops, understanding that everything is just a collection of those things. And using those, another major concept, it could be the idea of defense, or some concept that I've try to express here. All right, the devices. This is straight from the book. Typography, just developing your own font and font type, fonts themselves, word pictures, captions, connectors. Essentially, just we'll talk about that in terms of looking for patterns, etc. Separators, frames, bullets, shadows. I didn't too much on shadows, but shading I did. Faces especially, and then figures. I do a lot of figures myself. All of these could be lessons, I think, in a class, and you could just sporadically do them. It wouldn't have to follow a pedagogy at all. I think you could bounce from faces to figures to shading. It matters. Being more development. So what I'm thinking about doing, one activity she has is hacking ads. So you take ads and you just doodle stuff, mustaches, etc. in the ads, and you could even make it applicable to a theme, especially if they're characters or whatever you happen to be doing. Info doodle assignments, stories, science projects, notes, growth, the idea of a growth mindset, I think could easily be adopted, especially if we're just focusing on information and not the production thereof of some final product. Group doodles, novel studies, synthesis, review. So using one large piece of paper and the kids doodling on it as in a shared medium. Social science, the idea of the doodle being visual communication with kanji or Egyptian hieroglyphics. Pictographs. It's unlimited when you compare it that way. It could easily be a way of moving from Neolithic or Paleolithic to Neolithic societies. It's pretty much replacing my note-taking because it was just so bad before, and I didn't want to. It's so much easier from a distance to track, but also to focus on main ideas, because like eyewitness books, they can do a sketch and then write a few things on it, and they got the major concept. Most of my lessons might have one or two major concepts and then a few details. Definitely higher order thinking, which brings me to my next page. Expressing, this is a font one, but especially growth trends by this just one word. Using frames and bullets to stress something's important. It's much of the info doodling that they talk about in the book is a subtraction or reductionism, where you're reducing, taking data, and you're trying to focus on the gist of it. And that's a total skill. And it's a way of also monitoring. It's a way of monitoring listening and comprehension. You could hold up a class set of doodles and you could just scan them really quickly, way faster than you could catch their notes. All right, so this one is Doodle Systems. I didn't read as much of this, but it seems like the pictures of nouns. To me, this is when she says systems versus processes. System seems to be nouns and maybe how they are related. That's my guess. Processes is essentially just visual organization tools, and comparison again, organization tools. So the idea of self-creating rather than relying on black line masters. Okay, and the final thing I'll just finish with is they talked about. They didn't really talk too much about using colors, but dark colors text. Outlines, however, they said no. Outlines for some didn't like yellow, but I like yellow, so I did my doodle of Bite Me. Yeah, pretty good book. I haven't done all the activities, but it's definitely affected the process of reflection and getting the gist of lessons. The kids can easily scan anything with their notes and then and then fire it into their own notes, where before the notes were haphazard and hard to track. All right, there we go. Bye-bye.